everybody, welcome to the channel. Now today's video we know is about point spreads, and I'm sure some of you are here for different reasons. We're going to have a group of you that is genuinely wanting to learn about the basics of point spreads and point spread betting, and we're going to cover that. But for those of you who are a little more advanced, a little more experienced bettors, you're probably asking yourself, who's this and why does he think I don't understand what a point spread is? Calm down. I know that you understand the basics of point spreads and point spread betting, but there are a lot of misconceptions out there that are leading even the most experienced bettors down the wrong path because they don't understand how these lines are created and what they actually mean. Now, I always love to give away a little bit of free money, so we're going to start off with a $50 free bet giveaway. I'm going to select someone at random, and all you have to do is write a comment below and let me know what your favorite online sportsbook is, or if you have a preferred sportsbook in Vegas or anywhere else in the world, just let me know. All right, we're going to jump right into the basics. If you're a more experienced bettor and you feel really comfortable with this concept, just go ahead and skip over this section and we'll move into more advanced stuff a little bit later on in the video. But for basic sports betting, today we're going to take a common line, which is -6.5 and +6.5. Now this is really common in football because it kind of represents a touchdown difference in the game. So -6.5, anytime you see the minus sign next to the point spread, that means that you're betting the favorite, the team that you expect to win the game. And in this scenario, they would need to win the game by 7 or more points in order for you to win your bet. So whatever your point spread is, again, in this case, -6.5, your team needs to win by more than that number, more than that 6.5. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 100 points, whatever it is, as long as they win by 7 or more. You can kind of think of it as a handicap, or if you want to see this a little more visually, take the final score of the team that you're betting on, and you would subtract 6.5 points from it, and if they still have more points than the other team, you win your bet. Now, conversely, if you're thinking about betting on the underdog, you'd be looking at the point spreads that have a plus sign next to them. And this represents, again, a handicap, but they're going to be getting points. So you would take the final score of that underdog team, add 6.5 points to it, and if that score is now more than the other team, you would win your bet. So 6.5 points, if they're getting 6.5, that means they need to lose the game by 6 or fewer, or they could win the game outright. Either situation makes you a winner. So there's one other thing to point spread betting that you need to understand if you're new to betting. Next to the point spread, you'll oftentimes see in parentheses or somewhere off to the side another number, something like -115 or +105. So I'm going to explain what that means exactly. In the instance where you see a minus sign, that's going to represent the amount of money you need to wager in order to win or profit $100. So if it's -115, that means you need to wager $115 in order to profit 100. Okay? So you go to the sports book or you're online, you would give the sports book $115, you place your bet, and if you win your bet, you're going to receive your $115 back plus $100 in profit. Now, on the other side of that, if you see a plus sign, so +105 is a fairly common one, that's how much you would receive for betting $100. So again, in this case, you would go to the sports book, you place your bet for $100, and if you win, you'll get your original $100 back and $105 profit. Now, this is probably the most simple or clean way I could explain point spread betting to you, but I know I went through it pretty quickly here, so feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to go through 100 different scenarios with you, do little practices so that you can take some time and really understand it before you dive into it. So here's the part of the video that I think gets a little bit interesting. So we're going to talk about the biggest misconception out there regarding sports books and point spreads. And it all has to do with how sports books want to make their money. Now you might be thinking, I know how they want to make their money. They want everyone to bet on the wrong side of the game and lose. And that's not true. That's actually really, really wrong. What sportsbooks want to happen in any kind of contest is for there to be equal amount of money coming in on both sides of the spread. And what this ensures is that basically the sportsbook has almost no liability. Meanwhile, they can continue to collect the juice on every bet that comes in. So let me break this down for you. Let's say that the Chiefs are taking on the Browns, and the Chiefs are instilled at a 6.5 point favorite, okay? What a lot of people tend to think is that Vegas thinks the Chiefs are a 7 point favorite. The reality is that Vegas doesn't care at all what the final score of the game is. Their only concern is that an equal number of bettors or an equal amount of money comes in on the Chiefs and the Browns. And so they are just really putting out a spread based on public perception, not what they think is going to happen. Vegas might think that the Chiefs are going to win by 30 points, but they're not going to set the line at 29.5. Because if they did, you'd better believe they're going to get about 99% of the action coming in on the Browns. And no matter how sure they are that the Chiefs are going to win that game by 30, that opens them up to a huge liability. And if you talk to any sportsbook operator in the world, the one thing they don't want on any game is a big liability because it opens them up to potential huge losses. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, it also opens them up to huge gains, it could. But sportsbooks are not in the business of gambling like you and I. Sportsbooks want to make their money in a very systematic and organized, consistent way that eliminates all emotion and all unpredictability. So again, that's why they're always trying to limit their liability to as close to zero as possible and know that no matter what happens in the game, as long as they're collecting the juice on every bet that comes in, they're going to make a killing. Okay, so let's use that information and try and apply it to some real life scenarios to see how we can capitalize on it and avoid some of these other misconceptions. I want to take a look at the history and action of point spreads from the time that they're originally posted until kickoff. Now, this is something that experienced bettors will always look at. They'll always look at the movement in the line over the weeks leading up to the game. But novice or retail bettors, public bettors, usually don't even give this a second thought. They usually just show up to the sports book 5 minutes before kickoff, take a look at the spreads that are there, and place their bets. But that doesn't tell the whole story. And to give you a really good example of something that's really drastic that happened, let's take a look at a game that's about to kick off in about 2 or 3 days from right now when I'm filming this video. College football week 0, we've got Nevada traveling to New Mexico State. Now, Nevada is currently about a 9.5 or 10-point favorite. But what you don't see in that is that when this line was originally posted about a month ago, Nevada was actually a 17.5-point favorite. And what we saw happen there in a very short period of time was that a lot of sharp money came in and just poured on New Mexico State plus 17.5 points. So now here's the first misconception when people hear that. People hear that and think to themselves, oh, sharp money came in on this side, that's got to be the winning bet. There's no guarantee, but it does give us some indicators. If there was that much money coming in such a short period of time, there's got to be some information that some sharp bettors were privy to that the rest of the public wasn't. And that information isn't always something like an injury report or matchups. Sometimes it could be that the sharp bettors realize that there's kind of a misconception in the public perception of this game. And maybe they think that the sportsbooks put out a line that's not going to agree with public perception. So anyways, the sharp bettors came in, poured a lot of money on New Mexico State, and the sportsbooks had no choice but to shift that line all the way down to Nevada now just being a 9.5-point favorite. That's a huge swing. Now the other misconception comes in on the other side here. The public is going to look at this line and they're going to really like Nevada minus 9.5. Because if you look at the history of these two teams over the last couple of years, New Mexico State has been pretty much a garbage football team, whereas Nevada has had a lot of success. But that's, again, just the public perception. The Sharps know a little bit better. There's a lot more going on with these two teams, where New Mexico State getting 17.5 points is probably a lot closer to the real value than Nevada minus 9.5 points. So with that said, what would you do in this situation now if you're showing up to the sports book and you've got Nevada minus 9.5 and New Mexico State plus 9.5? And the answer, honestly, is that you shouldn't do anything. When you see this giant shift, we've already missed out on the quote-unquote value of this game, right? The value would have been the 17.5 points for New Mexico State. That's gone now. So if you were interested and you think that Nevada is going to, dominate this game, 9.5 points might be pretty enticing. And that's exactly what Vegas wants in this situation. They lowered the line to minus 9.5 points because they need money coming in on the Nevada side. Again, it's not that they think it's a good or a bad bet. It has nothing to do with what Vegas thinks is going to happen in the game. It has everything to do with the fact that Vegas is trying to balance out the money and the action on both sides of the bet here. So their thought is that the public is going to come in now. They're going to bet Nevada pretty heavily, which in this case is what they need to kind of make up for some of that sharp money being on the other side. So what I would really recommend in this kind of situation is you sit back and you watch the game. And what might happen is Nevada might come out and score first really quickly early on. And that's going to drive that line for New Mexico State from the current 9.5. You might see it pop right up to 14.5 or 15.5. And that's when you start getting closer to that sharp money bet. And again, there's no guarantee, and it doesn't mean the sharps are always right. But if I have a chance to follow a sharp on a line that had that much movement, I'm getting on it every bit that I can. So if Nevada comes out and scores first, maybe they score twice, they go up 10-0 in the first quarter, you better believe that line for New Mexico State is going to start creeping up to 17.5 or maybe even higher. And that's when I'm going to take that bet. All right, everybody, this is not how I intended on ending this video, but it's been over a week now. I've been meaning to post this thing. So let's give a quick update to that Nevada-New Mexico State game we were just talking about. Nevada won that game 23-12. They covered the 9.5 points. However, if you listened to my previous video, the week 0 predictions, tips, and tricks, you understand now why I was saying that New Mexico State plus 17.5 points was the real value there before it got bet all the way down by the sharps. Now, if you, again, watch that video, listen to the advice, there were a couple different opportunities for you to take New Mexico State in game to make a ton of money. So specifically at halftime, it was 17-2, Nevada was winning. But if you were watching the game, you probably saw that New Mexico State was absolutely on par with Nevada. They actually ended up outgaining them in total yards for the game. Talent was there. And again, there just wasn't a whole lot difference for them to be getting 17 or 20 points at that time. So if you go back to my week 0 video, watch it, and even not just for the tips and predictions, which I know are outdated at this point, but listen to the strategies and the thoughts behind it, because this is how you're going to win and make money consistently every single week. We talked about what to look for and when to bet and how to bet certain scenarios. I went 11-0 on Saturday. It was a $3,700 profit day for me. It could have easily been $10,000 more, but I was in Vegas drafting fantasy football with my friends, and betting was not my main priority that day. But we nailed every single kind of prediction that we put out there on that last video, and I think we'll continue to be very, very, very profitable moving forward just by watching and betting what we see, and also anticipating line movements based on what happens early in the game. So for example, we talked about Austin Peay versus Western Kentucky. And I had told you if Western Kentucky came out and scored first, the line was going to grow to an even more inflated line than it already was. And that's when I wanted to jump on it. That's exactly what we did. And we ended up getting Austin Peay plus 32.5 for the game. They lost the game by like 10 points. But the point is, if you know what to look for, you can lock in these really, really strong lines that are going to be much better than anything you can guess before the game. So go back to that week 0 video, skip to the end. You can learn a little bit about live betting. I'm going to do a separate recap video about my week 0 profits. You see exactly what I took, when I took it, and why I knew to take it then. Last thing here, let's do a $100 free bet giveaway. Go ahead and put a comment below. The first person who can correctly guess what country I am in right now will win a $100 free bet. Outside of the US, all I can tell you is that there's a beautiful ocean behind me. And guys, if you want to be able to quit your 9-to-5 and live a carefree life and just win money consistently on sports, just switch to live betting. Talk to me about it if you're not sure how to even get started with that. I'm happy to talk you through it, but it's the only way to stop guessing and predicting and actually profit on what you see happening. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Have a good one.